Again, I will be reading that bill carefully. But is the consideration that any issuer, be it a private entity or a public body, will be subject to the statute in the same way, or different rules that apply to different issuers?
There are different rules for issuers that have approval before May 1st, 2024. But there's no distinction between private or public issuers.
Okay, thank you so much. Those are all my questions, Governor.
Thank you, Commissioner Naves. Just follow up a little bit on that, Chris. I guess I'm particularly anxious about how this is crafted. In the definition, it refers to the Board of Governors. That would be the Federal Reserve, and you're talking about the governors that are politically appointed, or are you talking about the full board or just the voting members of the whatever that subcommittee is?
Yeah, the FOMC governor, I think, is what you're talking about. The Open Market Committee. Yeah, this would just be the 7 politically appointed members of the Board of Governors, not the Reserve Bank presidents like Eric Schmidt from Kansas City. Yeah, it would just be the Board of Governors. The Reserve Bank presidents, their legal status as voting members or officers of the United States is the subject of litigation in a Wyoming court and the 10th Circuit at the moment. So we're going to have more clarity on what their legal authority is soon, hopefully.
And just for the record,
yeah.
The Federal Reserve System of the United States is the only distributed system. And if you look back on sort of the history of it, New York has always exerted a particular influence on the Board of Governors. And I guess I've mentioned this to Senator Lummis over and over again. It does feel to me that the political process results in a very centralized approach. If you look back at Commissioner Trullo, for example, no community bank was safe under Commissioner Trullo, in my opinion. And it was really the regional banks that kind of carried the water. So I just caution against too much centralization. And I know that there's a temptation in Washington to fix things by being more Washington. And in fact, I think the problem there is that when you have actions like we need to have more consumer protection on the regional banks, when, frankly, that's exactly what their job is, probably more so than consumers. I caution against trying to centralize too much to DC.
Governor, I think Senator Lummis and I couldn't agree with you more wholeheartedly. Some of the materials that have been revealed in the custodial litigation have, evidenced a high degree of centralization and control over the reserve banks by the Board of Governors. And that's an issue that will continue to evolve. Senator Lummis is very focused on making reforms to the Fed. I'm going to be preparing some legislation for this summer to fundamentally restructure the Federal Reserve System and to distribute more power back to the reserve banks and limit the board's authority. As far as stablecoin legislation, the best we can possibly hope for is to limit the board's authority and to build in safeguards that they really can't act beyond the bounds of the law in certain ways. And that's why we've grandfathered in the existing issuers and set the denial threshold at unanimous and set a really high legal standard. But I could not agree with you more. There's a massive wave of centralization that's happening right now, and it is materially disadvantaging the Kansas City Fed, our community banks in the 10th district and other rural states. And I'm very concerned about what community banking looks like in 10 years.
Me as well. So, and I'll just make the statement, figuring out how to rotate New York off the regular vote would be a great remedy in some ways.
We'll get that. We'll get that in the legislation.
I digress. I apologize. Any further